Hello, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Laura, and this is the Parentrepreneurs Club podcast, a weekly show to help you navigate the demands of being a working parent. We will share lots of practical ideas, hints and tips, and our own and others' experiences with juggling work, family, health and finances. Above all, we want to help you find your purpose, define your identity, and banish any confidence gremlins that might be holding you back from the life you dream of. No matter whether you have children or not, there will be something here for you. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to our episode of Parentrepreneurs Club podcast. With me today, I've got Dan Temple. And Dan has been in the RAF for 20 years and now set up his own business development consultancy business called Cobalt Human Solutions. And I'm really inspired by what you do, Dan, particularly because you talk about human factors in there and really focusing on transforming trust within businesses and building relationships. So thanks so much for joining me today. And I'll just let you talk a little bit more about your background and what you do.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm excited and nervous in equal measure. So just put the warning out about my potty mouth. If I swear, I apologise now. Get your bleeper on the go. Thank you. So, 20 years in the Air Force. Most of that was spent operating Chinook helicopters around the world during the height of the Afghan era as well. So I did a lot of tours in Afghanistan, which ultimately led to me leaving the Air Force, but we'll come on to that shortly. But the biggest role we had within Afghanistan was casualty extraction. So operating as a platform, enabling the medics to get to the casualty, the battlefield casualty, not just coalition soldiers, anyone that's injured within the conflict. So Afghan civilians, Afghan fighters, women, children, everyone. And the idea is we get there and we get them out of the battlefield, back to a hospital to get them the best treatment. Absolutely loved it, absolutely hated it in equal measure. I'm sure you can do the maths why. But the biggest thing for me was understanding the human factors and how we perform as such a close-knit team. You've got four of us on the aircraft, operating that aircraft into the harshest conditions, whether there's no light, whether the weather's horrendous, whether there's contacts going on, there's firefighting, all the stuff. You've got to be at the top of your game and you've got to trust each other and know that we can rely on each other. And if we make mistakes, which we do, as humans we make mistakes, it's understanding why we made the mistake. So human factors is the science behind how we perform effectively, the physiological, psychological things that influence us as beings. It's been around for decades, first really discovered in the 40s. I won't go into bore you about it, but it simply is an aircraft used to land, a B-17 bomber used to land, and we would lose more B-17 bombers during the final stages than we actually lost to enemy action. And what was happening was the landing gear lever was right next to the flaps. So what was happening, the pilots were extremely exhausted, tired, low arousal state on a come down, having been working so hard at the height, engaged in what they're doing. And then as they're coming into land, effectively what they do is rather than selecting the landing gear, they select the flaps, which then they decrease speed, decrease lift, and the aircraft just pretty much fell out of the sky. All because of the conditions that they were in. So when we make mistakes, that's pretty much what HF is. And I want to take that from aviation and put it to business. Yeah. Because we make mistakes, and if we make mistakes, we can learn from them, but only if we can understand why we made the mistakes in the first place.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, and I think being an HR geek, as I call myself, but enjoying human psychology.
Yeah,
it's really important to look at the understanding of why things happened, and I think too often we focus more on a solution and trying to resolve something than actually understanding what the problem was in the first place.
Absolutely, and it's that. So when I used to be a standards officer on the squadron, so I'd fly with everyone on the squadron, all the rear crew, and then report on them directly to the squadron commander, which, if you like, the CEO, the chief, if you like. A lot of people used to get scared because it's like, oh, am I doing the right thing? What's Dan going to look at? What's he reporting on? And I trying to change that culture, saying, right, rather than focusing on doing something right that in theory we should be doing anyway, but we always know that when the process and procedures there, we don't always follow them for whatever. There's only ever two reasons why we fail to follow procedure. There's a conscious decision or an unconscious decision. So either consciously choose to ignore it because we disagree with it, we don't think it adds value, we think we can do a quicker way, a better way, or there's an unconscious in that we just don't realise we're not following it. Speeding is a great example. Got another ticket this morning. I shouldn't say that, but I wasn't aware. I'd got 36 and a 30. That's my own doing. I mistakenly didn't realise I was over the speed limit. Why did I? I don't consciously speed. So why did I get that? So they're the two things that we look at. But if we never really think about the why, like I said, so we used to use a thing, the guys and girls, I fly with them, and I said, don't worry about what you're supposed to be doing, just do what you do. And if there's a reason, if you're not doing something like you should be, I could see the trend. If there's 10 or 12 people that I'm flying with and they're all doing the same procedure incorrectly in the same way, that's not an individual, that's a cultural thing. But then we need to address that, like you said. I used to think with RCP, recognise, cause, prevent. Recognise what's not working. What are the causal factors? How do we prevent it? And you talked about solutionising. Let's use the word. We find out as a problem, right, we recognise a problem. How do we stop it happening? Let's get that big sticky plaster on it again.
Yeah.
The difference being, from a HF perspective, we always look at it as safety. It's all about safety. Well, it's used in safety critical environments. In your business, in HR, I wouldn't call you a geek, I'd call you knowledgeable. But in your business, within the HR,
geek, it's fine.
do you know what? And I'm with you on that. I absolutely love the psychology of why we do what we do. It's what makes me passionate about it. But if we don't understand why, we are never going to address that problem. We're trying to find a solution, but that big sticky plaster will only stick for so long. And that's pretty much what I do now. And it's come from flying, but it's come from, I had a conversation with somebody about, I think it's Married at First Sight this morning. Never seen it. I never watched it. I don't know if you're a fan yourself, but I watch reality now and again because I like to watch the people side of things, why we do what we do. Again, I love The Apprentice, but I've really gone off it. Because do you find it's a bit more Love Island of the business world, shall I say it? And that's not anything against Love Island viewers. Can I just put it out there? But it's just a little bit, people are, I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. I do love The Apprentice. It's a guilty pleasure. But yeah, I do know what you mean. I think they select people more on being controversial and the drama of it rather than actually skills and expertise sometimes. But yeah.
I think they do select, like you said, they get the one or two, and you can kind of pick out within the early stages. But then you've got to be careful because confirmation bias, whereby you then start looking for your own evidence to support your own view. You're like, I told you he was going to go. I told you she was going to get sacked and all that sort of stuff because you're our own mindset, isn't it? It's
definitely, yeah. Yeah, I had my claim to fame is I was actually sat at breakfast with what was his name? Is it Tommy? Who was on a couple of years ago. He was
the Cockney geezer, the sales rep. Big lad, big personality. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And he was at the breakfast table next to me in the hotel.
Brilliant. Do you know what? I had a lot of time for him, and even now, because he's honest. And when he made the mistake, he went, "Do you know what? That's my balls up." He said, and that is what we miss. I think in the workplace, we miss people taking accountability. And it's one of my core beliefs that accountability and integrity. If you don't have those two, you don't have the trust.
Yeah, 100%. And we actually said that on holiday. We're like, oh my God, it's Tommy over there. But after we got over the initial kind of, awe factor, we said that what he was really good at on the show is he came across as really genuine.
Yeah.
And I think that's all people really want today because we've gone through these eras of corporate CEOs and having to toe the line and dress the right way and look the right way and not bring our personal lives into work. And actually all we want to know is that people are people, that we're human.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from then? Why do you think that's around?
I don't know. I think there's a shift. I mean, certainly when I look at it from a HR perspective, it was very much when HR evolved, it was about the people and supporting the people. And then very quickly, sort of over the 80s, it became more of a strategic hard HRM, they call it. So, that HR management, we're on the business side now and we need to be driven by results and performance and, very strategic. And it kind of lost the softer skills. So I think it's just an evolution really of businesses becoming more corporate and feeling that they have to have this structure in place. And of course, there's always a place for that. But in my mind, we now need to say, yes, okay, we need the policies and the procedures, but how do we bring in exactly that human element of showing people that we are people? COVID was a big factor in that. When COVID hit, everyone started to reflect and go, what actually do I want from my life now? And we've seen this huge mental health increase, which I know, I want to talk to you about this as well, because that's something that, you've very candidly opened up about. So,
yeah, and I think you pretty much nailed it there. COVID, we talked about this the other week, didn't we? We were playing golf. Drop that in there, by the way. Obviously, we were both as equally as bad. Probably I was a little bit worse, but I'll take that. My shorts were good, though. That was the main thing. I think my shorts were good.
You definitely did have the best golf outfit, yeah.
But all the club of what another. No, I had no idea what I was doing. But I'm known for my trouser colour. Yes. So the biggest thing we talked about it, is COVID was horrendous in so many ways, and the amount of people's lives that were changed for the negative, losing people, losing family members, friends, relatives, it was awful. And now the ongoing that we're going to start seeing, I would say, in a few years' time, with the amazing people that are working frontline, the doctors and nurses, everyone, not just those, but people in the normal workplace, in the likes of the supermarkets, were still working all hours to support, especially because of delivery and that sort of stuff. People put themselves out there. But the thing with that is that we've got to take some positives somewhere. What did we learn? I think one of the biggest positives, and you've touched on it, and especially in your world of HR, is the change, is that the trust is now more there, because previously the presenteeism, where you've got to be in the office, the boss is always there from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. And if you want to achieve and you want to grow and progress and promote, you've got to be seen to be like the boss, because the boss saw their boss as how they were. And it's cultural, and we see it in the military still to this day. There is still that element where people look up. They don't want to give the bad news to the one up. They want to be perceived in the same, because their boss is reporting on them. So if their boss is doing all that stuff, that's how they want to be. Whereas actually the trust has come about because we can see that people can work from home. We can deliver, and we can still do that. But then that opens up another aspect. Like you said, the presenteeism is still there, because if my little light's not green, who's looking? You're constantly worrying about it. Do you know what? Go and have half an hour. If you need half an hour, go and have half an hour, because it makes you more productive for an hour. Do it, as opposed to just trying to grizz it out for an hour and 3/4 and produce a load of shit. Excuse me, there's the first one. Sorry, it's 20 pence. You produce poor work because you're not on the top of your game. Understanding what makes us tick, what helps us perform and motivates us is key. And that, for me, is the trust element and the leadership all combined. And that's what human factors is. Sorry, I'm off. I go on a tangent. I'm like,
No, I love that.
Those on the videos,
so right.
They can't see my hands are going everywhere at the moment.
Oh, I love that, and you're so right, and and certainly with the hands, like, you're so passionate about what you do, which is fabulous to see. And I'm going to trigger you here a little bit, because I know we talk about LinkedIn. We're both quite present on LinkedIn.
Right.
And I know you had a comment the other day that was about qualifications, and we had a real good rant about this. Yeah. But also, I saw something yesterday that someone had made a comment about they'd been tendering for some work, and the person that they were dealing with had seen their kids in the background because they'd come onto the Zoom call. Yeah. And shortly afterwards, they'd sent a response to say, "I don't want to work with you because kids are not professional." And I don't know, I think you might have commented as well, but what are your thoughts on that?
Wow, I didn't comment on it, because I think when I first saw it, I looked at it and I was like, sorry, so what? And it goes back to that perception, I think, for somebody. You said it earlier on, differentiating work and home life. When we go to work, we don't leave our problems at home. Get in the car, have a nice drive, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40, whatever our commute is, get to work, and we're into work mode. And then when we leave work, we say, right, we leave our work problems at work, and then we go home and we go back into the family life. And hey, it's all good. That differentiation, that integration, segregation, it doesn't work. We are real people, especially now in the world of connectivity. That for me, yeah, I think that was just a bit. do you know what? If that's the sort of company, I've turned down work, and people said to me, "You're crazy." I've turned down work where I've gone, all right, people want leadership training, they want leadership development. Let's get the teams in, let's discuss what is going on. The SMT, the SLT, senior management, senior leadership team, are in there. Oh no, they're too busy. One of the biggest challenges is the leadership, and that disconnect between two, but they've got so much going on. I'm like, now I go in and say, I'll come in, but I will be coming in and I will put in that report and I will openly say, this is the issue. This is what your workforce is talking about. That lack of engagement from seniority. The point being is the culture and the perception. If that's what you want people to view you as, if that's my personal thing is an outdated view. If you think that kids aren't professional, this is somebody who uses kids on LinkedIn, and people have said you shouldn't use kids on LinkedIn. They didn't ask permission. Well, I did ask their permission. Asheen loves it, my eldest. Ty doesn't care. He just loves him in front of the camera. He's happy. What's right and wrong is different perception for you and me.
Yeah.
I think. And do you want to work with that company who have that viewpoint? Is my question.
Exactly. And I think, that message there, and as you said, you use your kids on LinkedIn quite a lot. And actually, I think my reply was along the lines of, as a parent, I've learned so much from having a child about patience, compassion, being able to lead teams much better in the workplace than I ever did before having my child. So in saying, we don't, engage with children in the workplace, or it's not professional, in my mind, you're losing a massive skill set there, because parents are actually probably the ones who can, manage those situations much better.
Do you know what? I was on an interview with Nikki Campbell. Drop that one. No joking. It was we're talking about workplace culture and toxicity and bullying, effectively what it is. And I was on there with a couple of ladies on there, and one of them, she's run a business for years, and she went on there and she's like, this is how I am, and people know that I'm straight and I'm out, and they can tell me what they think, and I'll tell them if I think they're wrong or whatever. And she said, it's great because they respect me. And I'm thinking, they don't respect you. And I did say a point, I made a point to her. Nikki was like, oh yeah, and then we're going to move on from that, because it kind of she made this whole statement, and everyone else on the call was just like, and I just went, wow. I said, wow, that's how you treat your teams, and do they respect you or do they fear you? And that culture, if that's what we're setting there, it'd be worrying, I think.
Yeah.
Again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, that we have kind of, you look at what's happened even in the comedy world, and I know we've talked to you're a PTK fan like me, and you look at kind of series that we watched. I mean, I used to quite like Little Britain at the time, and some of the scenes now, you look back and you think, oh, I'm not really sure that it's not going to make TV, and we can learn from that. And I think what is interesting, and Catherine Ryan talks about this a lot, because I listen to her podcast, but about this cancel culture and saying, well, we just need to, eradicate it and, just not even make mention of it. Whereas for me, it's actually, no, we need to learn from it.
Yeah.
And there still needs to be an element of people having security in a workplace and having fun in a workplace and knowing where the boundaries are, but having open communication.
Yeah, so everyone knows at Auschwitz you've got Arbeit macht frei, so work makes freedom. And if we try and eradicate our mistakes and not talk about the history, then we're never going to learn from them. If we just cancel everything and stop doing it and never talk about it, we're never going to learn from it, because we'll never know what actually happened. We'll never know the negative impact of that. I'm not saying we just celebrate it, but I'm saying we need to learn and have that open discussion. I think there are times we have to be respectful, 100% be respectful of everyone and every person in the workplace, but don't not talk. If you can't have that open culture and that open talking, that questioning culture whereby everybody can ask and say, look, you know what, actually, I'm not quite comfortable with that. I've never been a big Little Britain fan. We talked about that before. David Walliams, he triggers me. I just think, I'm not sure about him. And some of those scenes in that Little Britain, you think, wow, okay. Yeah. But then you'd argue now still that Jimmy Carr, he's still straight. He talks about things that are just, people are like, whoa.
Yeah. So, and, I think this is a thing with comedy. particularly is where is that line? And a lot of the time it's very blurred, and what's right in some places isn't right in others. There's so much around this as to personal preference, and I think this always comes back to my philosophy has always been live and or let be, or whatever the term is, because we can't influence what other people do. Might not agree with it. If somebody chooses to do that, they have an equal right to choose to go to that comedy show or whatever it might be. So it's just about how we interpret it, I suppose, and what we allow to trigger us, because that then leads into another dynamic of what does that do to you if you let that build up.
And I think that's the key when you bring it into the workplace. It's like, if you want to pay and go and do that and see that in your own time, fine. But then if you start bringing that to the workplace and you start using offensive terminology, or somebody knowing that it's beyond the line, or even if it's close to the line, you could do that in the workplace, then that's degrading that culture within the workplace. And if nobody does anything about it, and that comes back to my point about accountability. I go running with a friend of mine, Gareth, clearly not as much as I should do. But when we have conversations, he said, go on, say it. You want to say it, don't you? And I was like, what is accountability? Yeah, because it usually is. If we don't hold ourselves to account, we don't hold each other to account, then that is, the expression is the standard we walk past is the standard you accept.
Yeah.
So if you and I are in work and somebody else is having a conversation about something, and it's offensive, it's unnecessary, or even if they're just talking about somebody and judging somebody, slagging them off behind their back unnecessarily, if we don't say anything about it, we're guilty by association. We're effectively inculcating that culture where people can do that. Have an open conversation.
It is exactly that. It's a personal reflection. I think we can all recall a time where we've said something we shouldn't, or that we just was thoughtless. But it's having the courage to say, do you know what? Actually, I was totally wrong in what I said, and what I thought at 20 isn't what I think at 38. Things change.
38 again. Showing off, thanks. But it doesn't have to be. And again, we can have our opinions, but I love the expression, opinions are like ourselves, everybody's got one. There's another 20 pence, sorry, but it's true that we know their opinions, but it has to be based on something. It can't be based on a Facebook view or something. People say I'm quite opinionated. Yeah, I do, I offer it, but I'd like to think I can back it with reason, with argument, and stuff that I've read and experienced and done. I don't just say, well, that's just a load of rubbish. Because we say, when I facilitate conversations, do it in the military loads. 15, 20 people in a room, get them together, all ranks, all trades, all different professions everywhere, come in, and they're moaning about something. And it's like, so what is it we're moaning at? What are we talking about? Let's let it constructive. Why? Why is the problem? Why? It's because it's shit. Sorry, I'm going to say it because I'm going to quote now. It's allowed. So why is it? Well, because it is. So what is it about it? You ask for tangibles, and it's like, well, then it starts to unravel that there's no substance behind it. You've got to have substance to an argument. And the degradation of that, when you have that in a workplace and a culture, people just end up dripping, for want of a better expression, and moaning. That then becomes, you talk about performance, you talk about a lack of trust within the team, whether you don't trust the leadership and the management to deal with it effectively, or to others to support you if you feel uncomfortable that you can't talk about what is upsetting you. Not that you need to change someone's opinion, but it depends on what that is, because we should be entitled to it. But then that then degrades the output, degrades the well-being of the employees. People become disengaged. We talk about quiet quitting. What is it? People don't want to say, I'm looking for another job, because they're fearful of how they'll be treated at that point, which is why they then look for another job. And ultimately, it impacts people's mental health. And we're breaking people unnecessarily.
Yeah, interestingly, when we talk about mental health, do you think that that's something that's getting worse or better?
It's a great question. What is it when you say it? Because we talk about mental health. Yes, somebody's got mental health. We've all got mental health. We've all got physical health. And it's exactly the same thing. If you've got the difference between mental health and mental well-being, if you've got poor mental health, if you've got mental ill health, you have a diagnosis. I was diagnosed with PTSD in September 21, which is one of the reasons why I left the Air Force. I was discharged from the Air Force because of resultant tours and amongst other things. You can still have a positive state of mind and a high level of mental well-being while with a diagnosed illness. You can also have a low state of mental well-being without a diagnosed illness. When people say, oh yeah, a bit depressed, you're not a bit depressed, you're either depressed or you're not. If you've been clinically diagnosed with clinical depression, then you are. If not, you might just be a bit down, which is a low state of mental well-being. And the point of that is it getting worse? I mean, I don't know. It depends on what statistics you use, what poll you look at, whether it's McKinsey, whether it's Gallup, or whether it's like the Armed Forces Continuous Attitude Survey. Everyone has got their own statistics. I think on the whole, we are trying to be better, but I also think that there is a danger that we are trying to tick the relevant boxes as well. So look, we've got mental health first aiders in the workplace, they're available, so it's all good. Well, they might be available, but do people trust that they can go to those people? Do people trust their leaders and managers that they can actually go and say, look, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this. Will they be supported? I think the level of disengagement right now, I think the latest Gallup poll showed about, in the UK, we've got a 12% engagement rate within our workforce. Wrong. 12% engagement rate of those that were surveyed, because there's a big difference.
Yeah, which is probably far less. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, if you're talking 10,000 people, you're talking over 1,000. Well, that's great. 12%. If last year was 10%, what about the other 88%? Why are they disengaged? We always try and look at what can we do about this 12%? In a teamwork, if we've got a team of 8, we should have a team of 8. We've only got 5 people. We keep focusing on these 3 that we haven't got because we're nearly 50% understaffed. Well, that's great. If we focus on these 3, what about these 5 that are doing all the jobs? Because you've got Bill and Ben, who are brilliant at what they do, and they're the trusted ones. You've got Mary, who's never going to set the world on fire. And you've got Janet and Jill, or Janet and John even, who you wonder how they put their socks on a daily basis. You really do like that. Who do we give our work to? Because we know we need it done. We need it done now, yesterday. But we give it to the ones we know we can trust that will get the job done. But then we end up breaking them. So our team of 8 has gone down to 4, if not 3, as opposed to trying to manage them. Focus on what we have got rather than what we haven't got.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, I see this a lot in organisations where people are often afraid of having difficult conversations because they're afraid of the litigation that might come with it. And then that does create really poor cultures for exactly the reason that you've said.
Yeah, it's huge. And that difficult conversation is because, like I said, whether it's, if we say something that's controversial, with the danger that somebody might be upset or offended by it. And I don't mean that in a woke sense, if you use expression, but I'm a big believer in asking the questions, although I've done quite a lot of talking. I believe in asking the questions. How do you feel? How has something made you feel? Why is that? What is it about it? When we ask why, which is great in the right context, if we ask what and when, we're looking for facts that we can actually work with. And that is key. But some people, maybe we don't train our people to ask that difficult, to feel comfortable and asking the right questions, which is why I started Cobalt, because humans are the solution, not the problem. We always see humans as the problem, whereas actually we're not. We are the solution going forward. If we treat our people right, they will produce, they will go above and beyond, regardless of how tired they are. Because if they feel valued and feel supported and feel engaged in what they do, they do care about the paycheck, but that's not the driver.
Yeah.
People go to work at the moment to get money because it is difficult times, don't get me wrong. But actually, if they don't feel valued within that, they will go somewhere else to get that same money, but feel valued.
100%. You absolutely hit the nail on the head for me when you said, are we asking the right questions? And that is something that leaders really need to think about.
It's one of the things I used to do. One of my last jobs in the Air Force, I trained people to be facilitators. So get a group of 15 people together, no agenda, no we need to fix this problem. If you've got something in the background you need to work towards, then you can have that as a sort of a framework, if you like, as an ultimate goal. But it's getting down into asking those right questions to get people talking and engaging and open up. If you haven't got that environment, the psychologically safe environment where people can openly talk about their concerns for fear of being judged by either their peers or seniors, the person who's writing your report, agree with everything. The Winston, there's a dog. Oh, yes. This is a great idea. We can do this. Oh, yes, yes, yes. The individual walks out of the room like, oh my God, we're going to die. This is the worst idea ever. But nobody said anything.
Yeah.
We train people to ask those relevant questions. What is the right question? Well, it depends on what they say. Listen to what they're saying. Then you can ask it.
Yeah. What we always ask our guests is if you have a book recommendation for parents or business owners, something that has really resonated with you on your journey.
Goodness. You're talking to somebody with probably about 200 books currently sat in bags. So if there's two books, then if you're going to talk parents, because actually the Parentpreneur podcast is what we're talking about, and we haven't actually talked about the challenges of parenting and running a business or starting.
I mean, you're welcome to talk about that as well.
But well, how much time you got? I mean, I think if I chuck it in there, say I think the biggest challenge that I've personally found is the balance. Is having left the Air Force, not financially secure because I wasn't planning on leaving as soon as I was. So you've got to find that, and this is every business owner's challenge: is income, getting that income, getting that revenue stream going, working on the strategy and how to implement it. Once you get that in, that's okay, but you've got to work hard. There's no two ways about it. And balancing that between, I've got two young boys, I've got a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, love them to pieces. Even the second one, who we call the feral one at times, because was it second child syndrome? They're crazy. Yeah, the challenge I have is trying to switch off and switch out from that. If I'm replying to emails, if it's late at night, somebody's come in, I should just say, do you know what, I'll leave that till tomorrow morning. But I know I've got lots more because I'm dealing with that. I'm working with the VA now, who's been fantastic, who's changed how I'm working. But there is still that element of, right, I'm always thinking about that next step. How can I generate? Who am I going to work with? What is it they've said to me today that's really sort of, sometimes we can have that inspirational time when you talked about the kids. I love my boys to pieces, and they have taught me so much about parenting, about leading, more than the 20 years in the military. And I used to teach leadership in the military across all ranks, all ranges, all professions, Army, Navy, Air Force, civil service, civil contractors. I train 300 people a year to go and then deliver training to 250,000 people a year. Asking those questions, teaching that theory, but only scratching the surface, really. Best way to learn is kids. Absolutely kids. They will tell you the truth. They will tell you what they think, how they feel, and why, if they feel comfortable in doing so. Because if they don't, that says more. And when you translate that straight into the workplace, it's exactly the same people. But don't see people as subordinates. I treat my boys as peers. I tell them, teach me something. Ushin loves to tell me stuff every day. I say, what are you going to teach me today? And we have a little thing where we teach each other something at the end of the day. If it can be, he's like, Daddy, I just want to play on my Switch. Can you just leave me alone today? I was like, fair enough. Yeah. But going back into that 2 books then, right, if I can give you 2 books. One from parenting. There's a really good one, I think, from me, by Pippa Perry. And I think it's called, you know it, the one I'm talking about is the book you wish your parents had read.
That's right.
But your children will be glad that you read, I think it's called. Brilliant. The way she talks about it, the way she tells everything in there was really, really inciting and enlightening for me. And then from a business perspective, The Starfish and the Spider. I don't know if I've mentioned it to you before. It's by Rob Beckstrom and Ori Braffman. Oh, now I want to say 2. 2 books. You're going to nail me down for 1. Yeah, The Starfish and the Spider. It's so you think about the starfish, the spider analogy as a business, a central nucleus, or if you're like a hierarchical at the top of the pyramid, you've got the nucleus is in charge. And off of that, you've got the arms, you've got sales, you've got marketing. Although they're the same thing, aren't they? Just to trigger the marketeers in there. Sales, marketing, operations, logistics, HR, don't forget HR. Whichever section you've got, if you pull a spider's leg off, it's going to be poorly. Same way if you chop funding in L&D, the business is going to struggle. If you pull another leg off, i.e. marketing, if you pull the marketing, because training and marketing are the 2 that go straight away. We don't need that. Well, sales comes from marketing and training empowers your people to give you engagement and well-being moving on. If you pull those legs off, after a while, that spider's going to die, just like the business will die. There is a breed of starfish. Now, an octopus chop their own leg off. They can do that and their leg will regenerate, but that leg will die that's gone off. An octopus actually chop their own legs off in defense as well. So if somebody's got hold of it, it can chop its own leg off. But there's a breed of starfish, and I can't remember what it's called, but if you chop the leg off that starfish, not only will that starfish regrow and regenerate that leg, the leg that comes away will regenerate into a new starfish, because it's not a centralized nucleus. It's not a centralized brain or controlling function. It's all of the legs have got their own control function within, if you like, their own brain. So what we're talking there is about a decentralized leadership model, if you like, in the same way that businesses. Now, people say, oh, you can't, you've got to have leadership, you've got to have the hierarchy. Yes, you do. You've got to have people that are accountable, not culpable, very different, but you've got to have that accountability. But you can have a bit of a flatter hierarchy, which allows people to autonomously work independently, but interdependently with each other. So they do work together. When you look at the 5 legs of a starfish, all of those 5 legs work together. Although they're all independent, they're interdependent on each other. Yeah. So the starfish and the spider talks about decentralized leadership, about how you can have that flatter hierarchy, but still have overall command and control if you want. And that's sort of, and just chuck it out there. L. David Marquet, Leadership as Language, I think is fantastic. That is one. Everything we talk about, all the words we use, the language we use, even just the slight words here and there, can change how somebody feels. Because it's not about what we say, it's about how we make them feel. And the words we use. Go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, what a great way to sum that up, because that is exactly it. Yeah.
Really.
You always give that extra value, Dan, which is what I love. No, brilliant. We will put those links in the show notes as well, so that people can get access to those books that you recommended. And how can people find you?
So follow me on LinkedIn. So I've got my page. Cobalt Human Solutions has got its own LinkedIn business page as well. We do have a website, www.cobalths.co.uk. The website doesn't really do the company justice. I kind of put it together about a year or so ago and didn't really do anything with it, because I started the business 3 years old this month, actually, 3 years old in October. But unfortunately, because of my health took a turn, and I was trying to work with my masters, run a business. We had a second baby, see where this is going. I just put it on hold. So I've only been working with it last for a little while. But I would say LinkedIn is probably the quickest way to get to me. Just drop me a message, follow me, look at my random posts with my kids, see how they've got loads and loads of hair.
And your posts are really engaging on LinkedIn. So
who needs enemies with friends like this? This is my boys brought me. Look, my cut.
I can't actually see that. It's blurred out. What does it?
It says it's the Aldi symbol, if you like, but it says Baldy instead of Aldi on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, our listeners won't get that, but if they check you out on LinkedIn, they will. Yeah. Well, it's been lovely to talk to you, Dan, and thank you so much. And I hope it wasn't as nerve-wracking as you thought it would be.
Well, the speed I spoke, we'll find out when I listen back. But no, it's really enjoyable. Thank you. Some really interesting questions. And you put me on the spot.
I know you've got so much to share. We'll put the links in the show notes.
Yeah.
And that was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Laura. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We rely heavily on word of mouth, so if you found value in this episode, please hit subscribe and share it with family and friends. If you'd like to find out a bit more about us, you can find us on our Facebook group, Parentrepreneurs Club, or alternatively on Instagram, Parentrepreneurs_Club. We hope you have a great week and we look forward to talking to you next time.